I absolutely love that the house is a living character that actually interacts and plays with and helps out the people that live inside of it. This is really the way that I think of homes. It's something that actually takes care of the people that live inside of it. It contains so much expression and so much life. So many of the homes that we build today are these lifeless, drab boxes that don't really contain any of the inhabitants' self-expression or even any color. My name is Stoic. I'm an earth builder based out of the United States, and I have to talk to you about the beautiful earth building in the film Encanto. You see earth building in a lot of films, but there's something different about Encanto. The characters are really connected to their home and to the village around them, and their accuracy is really stunning as well. You've probably already seen the film if you're here, but in case you haven't, there are spoilers, so go watch it. It's a really great film, and then come back and check the video out. Encanto takes place in Colombia, and the architecture is Spanish colonial architecture. I have never been to Colombia, but I have been to Spain years and years ago, before I was even involved in construction, really. And when I saw Encanto, it made me realize something that I hadn't really thought of before, which is I think Spain is probably where I first really fell in love with and saw the incredible beauty and potential of earth building and of clay building. By the way, if you're watching this and you are a builder in Colombia, please enhance the conversation by adding your thoughts in the comments, as I am lacking the perspective on Colombia's culture, and I'll be focusing more on just general earth building principles. I am aware that I am a gringo. I am the gringest.
The miracle grew. And our house, our casita.
I wish it was that easy. The truth about earth building is there are many, many ways that you can build with earth, but it's always a lot of work. No matter which way you slice it, you're transporting a massive amount of material, and at some point you're going to be transporting it all by hand at least once, if not multiple times. A house the size of the Madrigal's casita is going to take hundreds of tons of stone and earth to build. Now, the benefits far outweigh the cost in labor, in my opinion. Their home is going to be so comfortable because we'll get to see how thick those walls are later in the film, and all that mass is absorbing up heat during the hot day, and it's keeping the interior space cooler by doing that. And then at night, when the sun goes down and everything starts to cool off, the heat that's stored in those walls comes back out and warms up the space around them. So earth homes are alive in a way in that they breathe thermal energy, and they're always just constantly passively regulating the temperature of their surroundings. It's the opposite of the way that insulation regulates temperature. Insulation works by preventing the movement of thermal energy. Mass works by facilitating that transfer of thermal energy. One thing that really stands out about their design is all the roof tiles. So that's kind of that iconic Spanish clay ceramic roof tiling. I know those as barrel tiles. I saw roof tiling very similar to that in El Toboso in Spain. So if you're inland in Colombia and you're surrounded by tall mountains, you can probably get away with having your roof tiles on your roof kind of loosey like that. But if you're in a place like, say, Puerto Rico, or you're on the coast, or you're in Florida, the code for ceramic roof tiles is very, very strict. And that's because if they're not secured down really, really tight, hurricane winds will turn them into deadly projectiles. I have many dreams, and one of my dreams is to spend a year or 3 apprenticing at a tile maker in a place like Colombia or Mexico or Spain. Not necessarily just making roof tiles, but also making maiolica. Maiolica refers to ceramic pottery and tiles that you see all around the Madrigal household. Spanish maiolica is famous for having very vibrant, intricate glazing with very bright colors. In the southwestern United States, these are mostly just kind of touristy knickknacks or coasters. Most people don't really want to build that much color into their households these days, which is really sad because, I mean, you can see, look how beautiful it is. In fact, honestly, the glazing in the movie looks a little bit subdued compared to how the colors can often be, which makes sense. I mean, you don't want it to be too distracting on the screen. You can see most of the buildings have a visible division in the walls around the bottom. So in the business, we have a phrase, good hat and good boots. Earth walls and earth plasters will degrade pretty quickly when they're exposed to weather, especially rain, to the extent that if they're fully exposed, then you're going to have to touch up or replaster your home every 1 to 3 years probably. And that's if you live in a place that only really gets seasonal rains. But there are a lot of ways that you can extend the life of earth finishes, and one way to do that is to have a nice tall hydrophobic footing, so stone or concrete, and that elevates the earth wall up off of the ground where it's safe from groundwater and splashing and also from mechanical damage from things bumping into it. And another thing is a good wide roof overhang that protects the wall from being hit by rain directly. A good hat and a good boots. We get to see a brief shot of a house that's being built, and you can see they're building the stone up around a bamboo post and beam frame. A lot of people build that way, and it's perfectly fine. You can definitely build with bamboo as long as it stays dry and doesn't rot, and in places that have a lot of bamboo, it's a great resource. You notice a lot of archways in the casita, and that's because when you're building with masonry, it has a good amount of compressive strength, but it doesn't really have the tensile strength, and you can't really span gaps flat with masonry usually, unless you're the Romans show-offs. Usually if you've got like a window or something, you're going to add what's called a lintel. It doesn't have to be wood. I once saw a guy make a lintel in an earth bag wall out of a leaf spring from an old pickup truck, so... The plaster textures are spot on too. Like, they did an amazing job. You can color your walls by dyeing them or by even painting them or washing them, or you can actually find clays of different colors and mix them up to make different colored plasters without even adding anything else to it. The Madrigal Casita is 2, 3, it looks like even 4 stories tall in some places. You can absolutely have multi-story earthen buildings, and there are some really, really tall earth buildings in the world. The trick is to build the bottom walls really, really thick, and then each wall as you go up just gets a little bit thinner, and that creates kind of a pyramid effect that makes it really stay stable. The clay tiles cracking apart looks really good. You can see them like separating. Honestly, the cracking in the walls, I thought they could have done a little bit better. I don't think this is something most people would notice. I've just seen a lot of cracks in earth walls, but it looks a little, 2D, and it's just really, it'd be a little bit more spidering here and there and more thinner cracks in there, I think. Then again, it's not, normal cracks you'd see in a wall. It's magical family discontent cracks. But shrinkage cracks are very common in earth building. Clay loses a ton of volume as it dries, and so when you're making earth wall, you're basically getting your earth mix really wet and making it into mud, and then you're either sculpting with that or casting it into bricks or putting it into bags or something. In their case, I think they're probably just sculpting with it, like layer by layer. If you have a lot of clay in your mix, you're going to get a lot of shrinkage cracks, and that's not necessarily a problem as long as they're not structurally damaging. A lot of times it's just going to be these kind of surface shrinkage cracks that don't really impact the usability of the mix at all. Look at that beautiful oven they've got there too. You can sculpt ovens and fireplaces out of brick and earth. I know I'm biased, but the food tastes better. So stable earth is the term for earth which is of a mixture that is stable enough to be structural enough to use for construction. And stable earth is basically a mix of gravel and sand and clay, and if you don't want to have cracks showing up in your wall as it dries, then you need to have quite a bit of sand. You want to have at least like 70, maybe even up to like 80% sand. On the other hand, if you have too much sand in your mix, then it's just going to be really crumbly and it's not going to be held together very well. It's just going to kind of bust apart on you. So there's a balance there. Fortunately, it's a very wide range of soil compositions that will make a good stable earth mixture for construction. As long as you have about 70% sand to 30% clay and give or take 10% either way, then you can probably make it work. Man, I really wish that I had a room that just made infinite sand. That would make everything much easier. Like I was mentioning before, good stable earth mix for construction is mostly sand, even though people often use terms like clay building. So it would be really nice to just have an endless waterfall of sand. I bet that's extremely useful to the people in that village when they want to build their homes too. Building up in the mountains in Puerto Rico, I remember the earth that we were pulling out of the ground was like so much clay you could throw a pot with it. And so if you wanted to build with that, you have to add a lot of sand to it. And in most places it seems like that is the case. Like you end up having a lot of clay in your soil and you have to add more sand to really get that good mix that you want. And here you can see they've got some more of those bamboo posts kind of in the wall on this the crawl space or whatever it is. It kind of gives you the impression that the walls are hollow and there's this space in between them, and that's not how you would want to build your earth walls. You want your walls to be solid and really thick so that they're a good thermal battery and perform well. There is such a thing as a wythe wall, which is a masonry wall that has one or more gaps inside of it to act as kind of a thermal barrier, almost like insulation. But, it's a small gap of a few inches. Patching up cracks in earth walls is extremely simple. You just use the same material that you're using in the wall and fill in the cracks, and then you can sponge over it or, do whatever plaster you're doing over it. And generally, as you're building out your earth wall, the layers are getting thinner and thinner and more even, and so you're optimizing your mix not to crack as much, and then by the time you get to your plaster, there shouldn't be any cracks in it at all, and any that do show up, you can usually just kind of float out with a sponge or trowel over it and get rid of it.
I'm Jorge. I made the spackle.
Something I noticed in this scene that I was pretty proud of is the boot in the background with the little plant coming out of it, like from the movie WALL-E, which is one of my favorites. So earthquakes can obviously destroy earth homes, and one thing you can do to help with that is you can add a lot of fiber to your earth mix, and that increases the tensile strength of your earth and is going to help with something like an earthquake. So they're depicting a Colombian civil war in this scene, and some men are torching some of the houses and torching the town. It's another major advantage of earth walls is fires. So a fire can burn through your house and it can destroy the ceiling and any exposed wood and framing that's there, but the walls should be fine as long as they aren't relying on any of the wood framing to stand up. If they're standing up on their own, a fire's not going to affect them. In fact, it might even make them stronger. It's like you're firing them like ceramics.
Look at this home. We need a new foundation.
The foundation's probably actually still okay. It's probably stone. Look at how thick that wall section is. That's really realistic. You'd want a wall that's at least a couple feet thick for a house that size, 2 or 3 stories tall. There's 3 foot thick. There's 5 foot thick earth walls, in some buildings. And also it looks just exactly right. Right. I mean, it looks a lot like concrete, doesn't it? Just a little more brown. And that's, what is concrete? Concrete is gravel and sand that's being held together by Portland, and stable earth is sand and gravel that's being held together with clay. So, I mean, they basically are very similar things. I noticed that they don't really have any fibers in the wall, which is also realistic. You don't always need to use fibers in your earth construction. A lot of people these days kind of think you do. But as long as you've got a good balance in your mix, not necessarily, although might have helped the house not break apart as bad as it did if they did have some straw or some other kind of fibers in there. The detail is incredible. You can actually see on the edge of the wall where there's layers, like the core of the wall starts to become these 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch layers, like which are probably like scratch coats. And there's a couple of them, and then you put the plaster on over that, and the level of detail is just phenomenal. Now all of the villagers are coming to help out. It takes a village. I mean, it's a lot of work to be done, and that house, a lot of that house is going to have to be torn down before they can actually rebuild it back up. The good news is a lot of that material can just be reused just as is. You bust some of those big earth wall sections apart and soak them in water, and it'll recompose itself into mud, and then you can just rebuild with it again. My favorite builds are always the ones that are owner built, or at least the owners have some participation in the building of their house and get to add their own expression to it and just be involved in that process. I feel like it makes people so much more connected to the space that they live in from day to day, and I think that's such an important thing that so many people are just lacking. So that's Encanto. I really love this film. I hope that you found my video informative and entertaining, and if you like this, check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Thank you for watching my video. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Digital transcripts of most of my videos, as well as some other goodies, are available on my Buy Me a Coffee donation page. Link is in the video description. If you think that sustainable development, earth building, and other appropriate technologies are as important as I do, then please consider donating whatever you can. It'll mean a lot to me and help me create more higher quality content. Thank you, have a great day, and remember to go outside and build something.